I'm one of those artists that actually likes to do the art. I like to get dirty. I like to be sanding and grinding and sculpting and changing the angles and changing the anatomy around. And I work all day at the computer doing all sorts of the business of art, as I call it. And sometimes at the end of the day, my husband will call me and say, "When are you coming home?" And I'll say, "I didn't start my art yet." And maybe 5 o'clock, I'll go into my painting room and I'll start to paint. And that's when I find my fulfillment. And that's when I find that I'm doing my art and I'm happy. Where would I be without art? Art is me, and I'm art. I couldn't be me, so I wouldn't be any place. I'd be The first painting I ever made was with shoe polish on my mother's kitchen floor, and she just got, those days they had these linoleum floors.
That was a few years ago when Carole Feuerman was 3. She always knew what she wanted to be, an artist, and even got in trouble for doing her line drawings during class in grade school. In high school, Carole started selling her work. And even though she was already a budding success story, her parents didn't like her plans to study art in college.
They were so excited that I was becoming an artist that they refused to pay for college and told me never to come home.
Totally cut off by her family at the age of 18. That's when this brave woman got married, had kids, and still attended the School of Visual Arts in New York. Her hyper-realism sculptures are unique and groundbreaking.
Most of them are epoxy painted with lacquers, and the clothing, the skin, the accessories, everything is painted, even the eyebrows. But the only thing I add is eyelashes, sometimes a hair or two coming down. But there's no real clothes. Mostly they grow out of my experiences. I don't know what the sculpture's going to look like. I know what the feeling is like to persevere, or to try to have balance in your life, or to try to meditate and be calm. You know, I can speak through my work because each of my pieces, although they're a swimmer, they're more than a swimmer. They look like swimmers, but they're basically stories about life and things I've learned. The process begins by melting down at least 6 different types of metals till they are liquid, or 2,000 degrees, in different cauldrons. I then use these lava-like metals to pour, drip, splatter, and splash into my handcrafted molds. After they have cooled and congealed, they are pulled from their cocoon to unveil gorgeous, colorful pieces with rich textures and organic shapes. The fabrication process behind this collection of work represents complex experimentation with a wide variety of molten metals. It also represents my own unique contribution to the medium of sculpture. an entirely new way of sculpting with molten metals, which I've called painting with fire. With this piece, I want to show the human spirit, how we strive to get ahead, how we drive and work hard to achieve something incredible. The dive represents the power to succeed, the dive, the struggle to survive. Conceptually, the biggest challenge is to portray the strength of the human spirit, from his emotion to his whole body, the feeling of the pose, his perfection, all elements that make it a wonderful piece of art and not just a man jumping off a diving board. Making a sculpture that is hyper-realistic is not just captured by outward perception, not merely defined by physical forms and spatial fields that blend together, but also by inner relationships, composed as much by the unseen as by the seen. In the end, it's like a melting pot, where physicality, sensuality, perfection, and vitality become one.
The process started in Tempe, Arizona, at Bollinger Atelier, creating the piece out of wax. Poured wax was combined in a mold to create a positive the artist could work with. Feuerman could then add and subtract different layers to achieve the proper appearance. Then, once cast in bronze, Feuerman started the process of painting the piece. Drawing from the signature blue of NetApp, Feuerman and her team painted on a thin, iridescent layer of paint, while allowing the beautiful luster of the bronze to shine through.
With Kendall, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I knew it had to be something better than anything I've ever done before, which isn't easy when the competition is myself. I posed Kendall in various poses, and I had it in my head all along I was going to do a seated pose. I haven't done a woman seated in many years, so I said, do whatever you feel like, be natural, do something comfortable. And she leaned back, something like this, and I said, no, put your head like this. I said, gee, that looks good. I like casting the face. I think it's the easiest part, and it's the most interesting. There's a lot of determining factors for me to decide which material. With Kendall, I used something called life foam. So you can put it on someone's face and they can hold a smile. Where if you put plaster on someone's face and then it hardens, it feels very tight and very warm, and a person would have a tendency not to be able to smile the whole time, or they'd maybe fearful. But I think that the most gentle material I could use is the life foam. I use various materials for various parts of the body, and depending on how long the model can hold the pose, it determines what materials I want to use. And the other reason I like the Life Foam is it's very comfortable. And it's a special silicone that's developed to go right over clothing and to go over your skin, and it doesn't pull any hair out. Very easy to take it off, and it just actually separates when it dries. But it's really interesting for me to cast like a hand on the skin and to see the depression of a hand, or a strap to the body when it digs in a little bit. You see the realism that it's a real body and not just a mannequin, that realistic hint that there's a real live person. I didn't actually want to be a sculptor. I never thought of sculptors as doing these hyperreal things. I mean, I'd seen figurative sculpture in parks and museums, and it looked really kind of boring. When I went to my first sculpture class in college, I hit my hand with a chisel and went to the hospital, and I said, this is not for me, so I never took sculpture class. I was with a friend who was a professional sculptor. After graduating college, he showed me how to do a life cast, and it was so much fun, and I enjoyed it so much. And I started making these pieces. I change them a lot. Like, I start with a life cast, but then I modify them and change them, because, you know, just a life cast is only a cast, and I don't think that's really hard. So I start with the life cast, and it was fun to like build them and change the pose and add another figure to it and really develop it into a theme. And I enjoyed it, and I have been doing it ever since. The name of the sculpture is Perseverance, and I take it from my life story about persevering and not to give up when you have an idea, and I think it's a universal idea to persevere. And it's a girl on her hands, almost in a yoga handstand. I start with an idea in my head, usually an experience I had, and then I get a model, and she does the pose. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, she couldn't hold this pose where she's curved so much. The wax is important because there's a ceramic shell over the wax used to make the bronze. It's a long process. I tell everyone 2 years, sometimes it's 4 years. I'll put it out there because people struggle every day in life, and I want them to know that if they do what they love and they persevere, then the journey is worth it.
Carole's path is rooted in hyperrealism. Notice her eyes, toes, hair peeking out of this swim cap. From her studio in Brooklyn, Carole perfects the bronze sculptures, which on average take about 2 years to complete.
I did a gardener, I did all different things, but everybody always wanted a swimmer. You don't know how long you're going to live. Try to do something that you love. You don't have to do it full time like I do, but if you don't follow your dreams or do what you love, keep putting it off, you won't be happy. So you should try to, do that for yourself. And you never know. You never know You could become an overnight success if you keep at it for 50 years like I did.